Hey guys, so something has been floating around in my head about doing this video about Steve and Miranda's relationship on Sex and the City because it was so bastardized and destroyed and just like that. I wanted to go back and actually remember what it was like and why we got so mad about what they did to these two. I'm Megan Fox. I write with pjmedia.com in my day job where I write about politics and stuff, but then I come here and I have fun with you guys. And this is this is I was rewatching Sex and the City and I came to the episode where Miranda meets Steve, and I just was so taken by how um they made us fall in love with Steve. Like, it wasn't just Miranda falling in love with Steve, it was us too. And to do what they did to him in the reboot with no thought for how we would take this just goes to show how little they really cared about this series, because the people who wrote this Steve in Sex and the City really cared about this character, and they cared about this relationship. And then and some of those same people were involved in And Just Like That, where they just decided they don't care about it anymore. So let's go back down memory lane and remember the real Steve and Miranda. So Miranda's in this bar and she's on the phone with Carrie, who stood her up and they were supposed to go to dinner, and Carrie just didn't show up, which is classic Carrie, right? Just classic asshole Carrie. Because she ended up going to having dinner with Big at his house because he was making her food, and she's all lovey-dovey at this point in the relationship, and so she's just decided to stand up Miranda's pissed. She's sitting at the bar loudly talking about that this is bullshit and you shouldn't have done this to me, and how could you do this to me for a guy? And we see that Steve's in the background as this really cute bartender. She hangs up the phone and she says to him, she's really rude to him. She's like, "I need another wine." And he goes, "I need more wine, please." And she's like, "Excuse me? Are you allowed to talk to me like that?" Classic bitchy Miranda. And he's like, "Yeah, I think I am." And she's like, "I really don't need this from you." Like, she's totally a bitch to him, just awful. And he's being really great because he's just not allowing her to get away with it. And so every time she says something, he either, chides her about not saying please or about not using his name, because he'll be like, "Are you allowed to talk to me like that, Steve?" And she's refusing to use his name. But he's pointing out to her very well that she's being really rude. And, treating people who wait on you like this is really shitty. And eventually he charms her into into being cordial and talking to him, and like he asks her to please stick around so he doesn't have to listen to the rantings of 20-year-olds that he's surrounded by. And it's a really cute moment. And he wins her over, which is tough to do with Miranda because she's a hard ass. And he makes jokes about reading The Joy of Bartending by Hemingway. Look how cute he is. Steve is such a cutie. Right from the beginning, just a great guy, right? So, of course, we all know how this ends. They end up going back to Miranda's place. And she mentions how, terrific the sex with Steve is. He gives her 2 orgasms straight up, right? That was the line. So again, it's established right from the beginning that sex is certainly not a problem with these two. In fact, they met as a one-night stand. She kicks him out immediately. She's a total bitch. Like, she still has not stopped being a bitch to him. Like, she's being horrible. She's like kicking him out and just being rude. And he's like, "Can I have your number?" And she's like, "No. Let's just admit what this is. It's just a one-night stand. You don't need my number. You're never going to call me again." And he's like, "Well, I kind of do." And he's like, "Miranda, you're a pisser," which, yes, but he somehow is still, you know, um, he is amused by this, which, at this point, I think all of us at this point now, knowing what we know now, would be like, "Run the other direction, Steve. Just run," because this one's trouble. So anyway, he comes knocking on her door because she wouldn't give him her number, right? And to ask her out. And she's acting like this is really weird. And, like she just can't believe that he would come and show up and ask her out. Oh, this is still where she's kicking him out still. Oh yeah. So he comes up, so sweet. And she's like, "What do you want?" And he's like, "Well, I want you to have dinner with me." She's like, "Why?" No, he's like, "Well, I like you." So it's so bizarre. And like, so she's like, "Okay, I guess." But she's still being really super bitchy, which, it's just classic Miranda. She wasn't very likable. Although sometimes, you got the impression with Miranda that she had this really hard exterior, but underneath she was a softie. Once you break through it, she was really a softie. And Steve was able to break through that, unlike anybody else. Like before this relationship that we saw Miranda have with Steve, all the men in her life were completely disposable. She never had any interaction with any of them past one episode. They were just disposable. Steve now has shown up in a couple of episodes. So, um, they're establishing that this is going to be more of a long-term relationship, although he asks her to dinner, but she says no, she has plans. She says, "I'm meeting my friends for drinks at Denial." And this is where Big's supposed to be showing up for Carrie to meet her friends for the first time. So he tells her, I'll meet you there. And what time? And she tells him 7. And then he figures it out. He comes back, knocks on the door again and says, "What time are you really going to be there?" And she says, "Yeah, 9. So again, she's trying to ditch him, which I don't understand. Like, why do you ditch this guy? He's so sweet and you had a good time and you liked him. So what in the world? Why would you say no to dinner? Anyway, he meets them there and she's a total jerk to him again in front of her friends, treating him like the help, saying rude things, like making fun of their of going home with him, and basically insinuating that all he's good for is sex. And it's really, really upsetting. And he pulls her aside, again, not letting her get away with it. Her friends are horrified that she's treating him like this. And they're kind of like, "Miranda, what is your deal? Like, she's just a bitch on wheels." So he pulls her aside and he tells her, "Hey, you know what? I don't know what your problem is and why. I know it's not me because we don't know each other very well. But, just because you got hurt by some guys before, that doesn't make every guy an asshole. Like, I'm really not an asshole, but okay, this is how you choose to be." And then he walks out. He's like, "I've had enough of this." Um, but he's basically telling her, like, you really should believe that some guys are good. And then suddenly Big shows up and Miranda's like, "Oh my gosh, maybe men are not all bullshit." She goes running out of the bar and into the rain, of course, because earlier in the episode they were talking about mythology and the myths we tell one another to explain dating habits and explain why some of us are happy and some of us aren't. And there's always the myth that, like, "Hey, I know so and so's cousin's girlfriend's sister who met a married man, and he did leave his wife, and they did live happily ever after." And it's always in the rain. The scene is always in the rain where he shows up and is like, now he's going to commit in the rain. So of course it's raining. Miranda goes out to tell Steve, "Yeah, I do want to believe in this. I do want to give you a chance. I do want to give it a shot." And it's a really sweet moment. And we realize that, like, this, finally, there's a guy in Miranda's life who's going to be around for a while, who can get through to her, who can break through that really tough exterior. And I'm sure lots of people have that problem where they put up walls and stuff and only certain people can get through it. And they did a really great job making Steve that guy. And then they have their issues where in the coming, episodes that go on, that, they have a scheduling problem because he works at night, she gets up early in the morning, and he is always making her late for work. And it's, again, Miranda's just bitchy. I mean, it's just insane. Like, instead of being so upset about it and telling your friends about how bad it is, tell him, like, "I need a different schedule. Like, this is not working." Diego Knows did a fantastic, if you look up his review of this episode of The Myth, I think it was the Myth, and then the one after that. It's like season 2, episode 8, I think, or 8 or 9, 8, 9, and 10. His explanation of it is so great. He's like, "Why are you telling your girlfriends about it? Just go tell him. Like, if men would be so much easier if you would just tell them what you want. Tell them what the problem is instead of complaining about it to your to your girlfriends. And he has a good point about that. Diego Knows is funny. I listen to his videos when I'm in the laundromat because my washing machine is still broken. Yep, my laundry is still broken because I'm waiting on parts that are probably sitting on a container ship somewhere in a harbor. And it's been 4 weeks now, so I don't know what I would do without Diego Knows and his recaps of Sex and the City. From a straight man's perspective, I love them. And you should go and listen to them because they're really hilarious. So this is part 1 of Steve and Miranda's real relationship. Where will this go? What will we discover now that we know what we know? Will our opinion of this relationship change in retrospect? Also, my microphone just broke and I'm so pissed off about it. I'm actually having to use my computer mic, which probably sounds terrible. And so I'm just having a run of bad luck right now. I cannot function without my microphone. I need it every day for work, so this should be interesting. So let me know in the comments below what you thought about this episode, and if you are interested in hearing more about Steve and Miranda and their real relationship that we all knew before And Just Like That destroyed it. And if you have any recollections or memories of what you thought about Miranda and Steve, drop them in the comments below. I would love to hear about it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon. Thanks.